Good afternoon. I'd like to start by acknowledging that we are on the traditional and unceded territories of the Sechelt Nation. I'd like to call to order the Committee of the Whole meeting for December 11th, 2019. It is 3 o'clock, and is there any declarations of conflict? Okay, I'd like a motion to adopt the agenda. Second, all in favor? Okay. Okay, do we have any appointments or delegations? Nope, none. So we'll move on to item 4. Any new business? Okay, perfect. And so item 5, business items. We have item 5.1, budget process review, and we have a report from Director of Financial Services, David Douglas. Thank you. Motion to receive the report. All in favor? Moved.
Thank you. So we've been, I know there's been a lot of questions asked about the budget process, where we're going to go, how we're going to do it. But basically, starting late January, the intention is to bring something to every committee of the whole meeting, and to see how far we get. And if the process slows a little bit, then we're going to have to add a couple of meetings, maybe in the off week or whenever it works best for council. But the third Wednesday in January would be the first meeting that we'll be meeting again, and we'll be talking about the general operating fund. Do you have my? So included in the report is okay, so this is kind of the timeline schedule that the staff are putting together. We started in November, where we as staff, the senior management team, met with several community associations, and we took notes at all those meetings. And the intention with any asks through that process, that we're going to put some dollar numbers to it, and it'll come forward at a future committee of the whole meeting where we're talking budget. So December, we're starting here with the committee of the whole meeting. We're going to talk about the sewer operating fund today and some capital. And then the same in January, we'll be going through the general operating fund start. That usually takes a number of meetings. We'll probably have a few early budget requests that we'll deal with, and then we'll just follow that schedule through February, March, and by late March, early April, we should be bringing things to council for further discussion and approvals. And we do plan to have a public engagement process. And in my report, we talk. Oops. Not sure what they might do. Okay, we talk about that a little bit. It could be either a town hall type meeting, open house, but we'll be pushing out, all this through our communications department, which could be radio ads, print ads, on our website, and other social media. So is there any questions on going forward with budget?
So just looking at the list of things that we're going through, essentially that's in order. So starting with general operating and working down that list at the bottom.
Yes, you bet. Yeah. They may come up at each meeting. If we go through a section where we're talking about engineering or public works, and there's some asks there that, we need to find funding for, we'll talk about them right at that point in time. So I know in the past you're handed a booklet and put on your desk, and then you went through that booklet, to varying degrees. But I think my plan is a little bit different. We're going to build the booklet. And so everything that goes in it, you're going to know all about it. And you're going to have, made decisions as we make we put together the booklet for the public. Any other questions? Okay, so we'll start with looking at the sewer operating fund. I have two documents, one the agenda package, which you have, and the other document I handed out about an hour ago, and it's the presentation that's on the screen. So unfortunately, we'll be flipping between the two, and we'll try not to get lost. And if you do, please stop me and say, hey, stop. Okay, so kind of on the presentation agenda, we got a little thing on the sewer assets. We're going to walk through the lift stations, treatment plants, treatment areas. We'll do budget review, operating, and then look at the capital requests, and then we'll talk a little bit about long-range planning. Does everybody hear me okay with? Everybody okay if I stand? I'm a stander and thinker. So part of the process is that, the strategic plan needs to play a part within the 5-year financial plan. And so our strategic plan does have sections that include comments to kind of going forward. And really the three that I'm pulling out here is 2.1, 2.4, and 2.5. Continuing to improve our asset management program, ensuring financial resiliency by building reserves, improving investment strategies, and reviewing our fees and charges to ensure adequacy and fairness. Am I pushing something wrong? Okay, so now we'll just go through. We're going to review some of our assets that are included in the sewer operating fund. And so really the sewer operating fund oversees the operation and maintenance of the Water Resource Center, the Dusty Road Treatment Plant area, the entire sewer collection system, which includes approximately 50 kilometers of underground sanitary sewer piping systems. We have 9 lift stations at varying ages and a fallout out to the ocean. So the value of these assets in total is $43 million. This is before depreciation. So this is at cost or when built. So we have a little bit of land that's associated with some of our sewer assets at just under 800,000. Treatment plants were $2.4 million. Dusty Road, 164. Pipes and related infrastructure, $15 million, and lift stations valued at $2.4 million. You have to remember these costs can go back as far as 25 or 50 years. So this is the area that we service from our sewer network. Dusty Road, captures a lot of the other areas within the town, within the district of Sechelt. So anybody who is on sewer as on their property, Dusty Road would eventually see the sewage from those homes. This here is our sewer network in town. The green is the people that are connected. The brown lines are the sewer pipes that exist, and what you should notice here is that there are segments where there's a sewer line, and there's pockets of properties that aren't attached yet to our sewer system, and that's it's pocketed throughout the community, but many of our streets are fully connected. And the other thing to note is that we have a couple pocketed areas where there's residential in this area, but there's no sewer available in this area. And there's another area down here and another area over here. And then, of course, all this area here. So one of our bylaws that we have has set this area out as our sewer utility area. And so the parcels of land within this area are charged a parcel tax for the availability to have the sewer in this area. Everybody that's green will be paying a user fee on top of that. Yep. Yes, go ahead.
So do they pay a parcel tax and a user fee?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. So is there any questions on the map? Yeah, and we've added another area over here. This is a developer built a nice townhouse complex here on the water, and our sewer line runs out to here and up the street as well. And that's new within the last number of years. Pardon me?
How is that connected to the main system?
So we have a pipe that runs from here. I don't know the exact line, but it runs from here out this way, and we capture the First Nations here, and then we tie back into it here for that subdivision. So we're just going to go through. We have 9 lift stations, and all varying ages and conditions, and you know, I think this is a good opportunity to get to know what you have and what we have to manage. And so these are the locations of the 9 lift stations. And so we have 2 in the West Sechelt area and the remainder on the inlet side. And we have this red dot here is a new lift station that's about to be commissioned. And this one will come on, I'm going to say January, February is the plan. And this green one, this one called Anmore, will be taken off the system. Okay. So we're replacing a 25-year-old pump station or lift station with a new one there. And that's developer designed and built. So one of the newer ones we have is the Oni lift station. It was commissioned in 2016. This one so far has relatively low flows. So there's capacity there down the road that when we build the sewer area up there a bit, that the flows can flow to here and still has the capacity. I've just included some general information about it. I'm not going to go through each one, but this one here is 240 horsepower pumps, which are reasonably sized pumps. You'll find that some of the other ones have quite small pumps. This one includes SCADA controls. And so although we don't have SCADA hooked up, the availability for this lift station to be on a SCADA system is there. And as we go through, you'll see that there's only about 4 that have the capability at this point. So this one, all our lift stations but one has a generator. So this one has a diesel generator that's attached to it in case the power goes down. And essentially for now, it's just pushing liquid from the townhouse complex. Another one, Watermark lift station, was commissioned in 2012. This is a high flow lift station. It has 240 horsepower pumps there as well. It also has a capability for SCADA, includes a diesel generator. And this is one of the main ones that provides for the downtown area. This currently has an alarm notification to our operators, but it's not hooked into any SCADA because we don't have it.
Sorry, you said we don't have SCADA?
Not
So
for
it
lift
has-
stations, no.
Okay, so it has the SCADA capabilities, but we don't have it.
Correct. For the lift stations.
Okay,
Does
thank you.
our treatment plant have SCADA? Yeah, so our treatment plant has SCADA. However, the idea though is one of the items in the capital plan is to put in the other infrastructure that now we can connect to it, right? And there's several ways you can do it. You can do it by radio, by cell, or by internet drop. So staff are continually working on what is the best, what is the cheapest, what is the most effective. So, but you'll see there's a budget item in there for that. The Mackenzie lift station was commissioned in 1993. And just to go back to the no, it'll be coming up here. So this is 1993, so it's a little bit older. It's 27, 28 years old. It's a low flow lift station. Now this one has two 3.9 horsepower pumps. So you can see it doesn't have a lot of horsepower, but it is a low flow pump station. It doesn't have the capacity for SCADA control, and it includes a propane generator. This area provides service for a small residential area in West Porpoise Bay. Includes alarm notification to operators. Yep.
I don't know how you want to structure this conversation, but I just would like to hear a little bit more about some of these ones that need a fair amount of work. It's probably more of an engineering question. But I see in the budget that, or in the capital budget, that Mackenzie's due to be replaced in 2023. So could I hear a little more about how it's failing, or do you want to leave that for later?
Maybe we just go to the end of lift stations and we can have that discussion then.
No problem.
Because you'll see there's two other ones that are needing replacement ahead of that. So Harbor Way lift station, commissioned in 1995. This is the same age as the one that's being decommissioned in January. So moderate flows, two 50 horsepower pumps there, so it's got quite a bit of power, has a diesel generator. This one provides services for the residential areas in West Porpoise Bay. And this one includes alarm notification operators. I would say this one does not have, it does not have SCADA capabilities.
So if it has notification to operators, how do they get notified?
That would be radio or cell phone, but it's not SCADA. It's not software driven.
Right.
It's just there's alarm that comes out of the building, and our operators get notified.
We get notified by the signal goes to brain security, and brain security calls up the operators.
And that's for all the lift stations? Yes. Yeah, okay. So the Norris Bay Road lift station, commissioned in 1993, so it's older than the one that's being moved out next year. Moderate flow lift station, one 3.9 horsepower pump. So, so this one, you can see the infrastructure is not anything like the other ones. Very small. Basically does a small area in West Sechelt. The lift station needs to be replaced due to age and condition. If not replaced in 2020, there'll be major maintenance required after that, and may be needed in 2020. That's it right there, yeah. Yeah. But one pump, it's very small. Includes alarm notification as well. And years when this one was commissioned, it was initially commissioned as a temporary lift station. And here we are, almost 30 years later. Wakefield Road lift station. This one was commissioned in 1993, 2 years older than the one coming out. This is a high flow lift station. It's got two 50 horsepower pumps in it. Does not have SCADA control capabilities and includes a diesel engine or diesel generator as backup. Provides service for a small area in West Sechelt. Includes alarm notification to operators. And at the bottom there, it says this lift station needs to be replaced due to condition and size at an estimated cost of $1 million. Now, in the capital, when we get to the capital list, we have a grant that we've applied for, which includes this lift station in that grant application. However, the problem becomes is, what if we don't get the grant? this is due up for replacement. The Shores Lift Station, commissioned in 1995. It's a moderate flow lift station. Does not have SCADA capabilities. It includes a diesel generator. Original pump needs sent away to be rebuilt. So there's some maintenance that's required on that as we speak. Provides service for residential area in West Porpoise Bay. Once again, includes alarm notification. Emergency repairs were required in early 2019, and it needs a surge protector. If you need to know what that is, Christine's here to answer that question. Okay. Yeah, electricity. So this is the Anmore lift station. This is the one that's being decommissioned early in 2020. This was 1995 was commissioned. It's a low flow lift station and has two 3.9 horsepower pumps. So very small pumping. Does not have SCADA control capabilities, includes natural gas generator. It's over in West Porpoise Bay. Includes alarm notifications. And as I've said earlier, it's due to be decommissioned in the near future. And previously has required some major maintenance. So this is what will be the new lift station. We call it Woodland or Rippleway lift station. It's to be commissioned in 2020. It's will be a low flow lift station. Two 11 horsepower pumps. Will have SCADA control capabilities. Includes electronic flow meter, which is the first one of our units that does that. So we can calculate or watch the flows in and know the usage on that. Provides service for residential areas in West Porpoise Bay. And so we hope to take ownership of this in early 2020. So we're just going to leave the lift stations. However, we had a couple questions. So go ahead.
Yeah, so talking about some of these ones that need replacement. I just want to know a little bit more about the issues that we're having with them. It's a very general question, but if you could just speak to, I guess, yeah, the ones that need replacement sometime soon.
Well, Wakefield, which is one of the biggest concerns, is that it's not on? It looks on. Closer to my mouth. Okay, thank you. It has a very small well within it, and the flow just has increased so much in West Porpoise Bay. So, and because it's nearing the end of its life, where a lot of things need to be replaced, it's the size is the biggest thing, and replacing the components. And if it's going to be replaced soon, it's a lot of money to upgrade everything. I think you said everything about that one.
The other one I had was Mackenzie needs some new pumps, I guess.
And Mackenzie, yes, we don't have a lot of issues with that, and I think Sanath or Darwin could discuss what you had mentioned earlier about replacing that lift station in 2024.
That's correct. It's a capacity issue again. Components are failing, so we have to kind of expand and enlarge that lift station.
Question?
Okay. So these have generators. I noticed one of them doesn't have a backup. And one is propane, the rest are diesel. Two are propane? Sorry, missed that, rest are diesel. So does that mean our staff go around and make sure that there's sufficient, diesel or whatever at each of them, or how is that managed?
Yes, we inspect them every day, and that's one of the things we check is the fuel level, and we also do a generator
So if we had SCADA capabilities, would that be something as well that would be monitored through that?
For sure, there would be generator runtime. You can set the generators up to automatically run and test. There would be a lot more things that we can keep closer eye on, for sure.
Okay, thank you.
So I want to know a little bit more about failure modes. So I look at Norwest Bay, has no backup generator.
Yes.
Power goes out, what happens?
Very observant. That's, we would get a call alarm that we have AC power failure, and an operator would go out and check and keep an eye on it and make sure that the power's been restored.
Let me just clarify. Let's
Sure.
say the power is out for 2 days.
Yeah, we're calling a sucker truck. They're keeping that wet well empty. Yes.
Okay, so there's a small amount of storage that
That's
would
very
fill up
small,
and would
yes.
need to be vacuumed out.
Yeah, it's about a cubic meter.
Okay.
Yeah, very small.
Councillor Toth?
Thank you. You answered one of my questions there, mentioning that the wet well in there is only a cubic meter, but with the Norwest Bay lift station, it was only commissioned initially as a temporary lift station. Was it intended to be like another one built there? Was there an intention to send the waste elsewhere? Like, why was it only a temporary one that became a permanent temporary one? Do you know?
I don't have the answer for that, if there was some other means to get that sewage. However, yes, temporary became permanent and of course became our infrastructure. So I don't have that background information.
Okay. And just as a follow-up, the lift station that would replace it would be similarly sized, located in that same area?
We would do a review on the flows, again, look to see if we can better position that, being that we might have to get some property to take that kind of off the road a little bit and kind of stage it better.
Right, thank you.
Yeah, that lift station is also included in that grant application that we have in.
I have a quick question. When you're looking at replacement, how do you determine, because I noticed some are low flow, some are high flow. What makes you determine what you're putting in there? Is it population or how?
It would be based on catchment area, and what we always try and build things a little bit bigger than what's needed, so for future growth, of course.
Any more questions? Okay, let's move forward.
Okay, so we have two treating areas for septage or sewage, and one is the Dusty Road receiving station. And there is, I think there's 4 ponds there. Is that right, Darwin? 4 ponds. So 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the receiving station. Some people like to refer to it as the Muffin Monster, and so this is where all the haulers would put their treatment or their septage, and it's there's a flow meter on that, so we know how much flows and all that kind of stuff. So I'll just refer to Darwin for a second. Which ponds were dredged this year? This one here? That one? And this one? This here. So these 2 are dredged this year. And will this one ever need to be dredged over here? Yes. Yeah. Okay. Half the volume. Half the volume's been removed.
So we're estimating that remaining in that one pond on the left.
Yes.
Still half the volume that we removed out of the other 2 this year.
Okay. All right. So that's a big pond, holds a lot. Okay. So this was commissioned in 1993-94, and it receives liquid waste for all the homes currently on septic systems for the entire Sunshine Coast. We have a lease on the property. Lease runs out 2031. So further in my PowerPoint presentation, we're going to talk about what what are we going to do? What do we need to look at? We have sludge that is being dewatered right now, just out of sight here, from these two ponds. We need to dredge some more, this pond. And there'll be a rotation as to how often we'll need to do that. What do we do at 2031? Are we going to extend the lease or try to extend the lease? Or are we going to build a new receiving station or site? Or are we going to close the site? So those are all long-term things we need to talk about. Water Resource Center was commissioned in 2015. It's currently 5 years old, and some of the operating equipment is in need of being replaced and or requires major maintenance. So a lot of the lifts in the budget this year are relate back to the WRC. The overall maintenance level, as we're finding out as we run this plant longer, needs to be elevated. So the level of maintenance needs to be elevated to be able to extend the life of the working assets that are in there. So a couple asks in this budget, they're asking for an additional staff for 2020. Currently, the daily average flow is at 2,200 cubic meters, and it has a capacity of 4,000 cubic meters. So that's all I had to say on those two. Any questions there?
Questions? Eric?
The elevated maintenance on the Water Resource Center, is that expected, or is that something that just came up?
There's a lot of equipment at the Water Resource Center and a lot of valves, a lot of different pumps, a lot of different systems, and just according to the manuals and according to how they're operating at this point, they need maintenance at the 5-year point.
So it's just part of the general
Yes,
maintenance.
yes.
There's nothing unscheduled coming up, really.
No.
Thanks.
Councillor McLean?
Yeah. So are we getting behind on the maintenance due to lower staff levels? Because recognizing that we may need more staff in the WRC, is maintenance being missed at this point due to those lower staff levels? Hello, Tom.
Hello.
Good to have you here.
Yay!
I bet, yeah. Yeah, it's nice to be part of the conversation. Sure.
Would you like
Who am I talking
We have a question on the floor, and Christine from the WRC is going to answer it.
Okay.
The whole department needs more staffing to complete all the maintenance requirements throughout the collection system, Dusty Road, and the WRC.
So we currently have 4 staff there, 4 and a 0.2, 0.3 person, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
So 4 staff, and so the list of assets that I listed earlier in the presentation, 50 kilometers of pipe, 9 lift stations, 2 treatment areas, it's all managed by 4.3 people.
Mayor Seegers?
So we were looking at getting a level 4 operator and a staff member for Dusty Road. Those 2 positions are still vacant. Are you talking here about additional on top of those 2, or one on top of the 4 that we currently have?
One on top of the 2 that are vacant. However, the chief operator is included in the 4. So so right now we have a person from Public Works that came over to the WRC. And so if we had a chief operator, that wouldn't have happened. It would have been chief operator and then Christine and 2 other people, 4. In the absence of the chief operator, Christine's been filling that role, and we brought somebody over from Public Works on a temporary basis. And the position at the Dusty Road hasn't been filled yet.
So if we fill the level 4, that would give us 5 there, plus the one at Dusty Road would be 6.
Yes, but we've only budgeted for 5. So the
Okay.
Public Works, so if a guy walked in tomorrow, or if a person came in tomorrow at level 4, the Public Works guy would go back to Public Works.
Okay.
Okay, so it's still 4, 3. Then we'd add the Dusty Road, and they're asking for 1 on top of that.
So if we want to keep the one who came over from Public Works, we need to budget for that in
Yeah.
this category.
Yeah, we need that person. We'll have to be posted, so we can't say who that person might be at this point.
Any other questions?
I'm just wondering about this Dusty Road situation. I know when the initial, I guess when we took on the new WRC building and we changed the way things were working, we were hoping that we would have a card lock system up there that we would not need a person up there. So is that workers' compensation or something like that that's asked for us to put a body up there, or can we not go to a card lock system up there?
It's excuse me. It'd be best to have that place manned. That way we can monitor what is being brought in and how that's happening. What we find is that we have stuff that's being dumped, oil is being changed, and things like that. We would monitor, and we would allow the haulers at a certain time, so that individual would be working there, gate would be closed, and do other stuff, and then we can open it up at certain times.
So currently, we kind of operate with a card lock system, where the operators or the haulers go up and dump on their own. But we've experienced some problems with that, and so.
No doubt. Yeah. So right now we're back on the honorarium system. Is that what we're doing up there now?
Correct.
Wow.
However, everything they put into the system has been put through a meter, so we know how much is going through into the system.
Okay. And then you can balance that off at the end of the month, or however often you do, to check the records to make sure that you're close.
Yeah. So they get a slip, and we get electronic file that tells us how much and how often.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Well, I don't know how far you folks have gone with this thing, but I know that I guess I got a couple things. It's number one, the Dusty Road facility is an opportunity for the district to I don't know how to really say this, and it's going to come out good, but it's an opportunity for the district to actually make some money up there without impacting the taxpayers. And once again, we have to look to the future and to the fact that we're going to need a new septage receiving area or a new space, and we have to start putting money aside for that. And it's kind of one of these things when you put a person in place up there at Dusty Road, you end up with all of a sudden you end up 9 to 5 Monday to Friday, and then they get 3 weeks off or 4 weeks off holidays, and so then you need a person to replace that person while they're on holidays or on sick leave or on days off or whatever it is. So it becomes more than just a full-time job. It becomes a job and a bit. So it becomes a lot of money that has to be recaptured somehow. So, just my thoughts. Anyways,
And just kind of a reminder that the fees for dumpage is what would pay for this salary there.
oh yeah. But once again, I mean, we got to make sure we're charging enough, and if we think we're charging enough, then we should be charging more because we're probably not charging enough. So, anyways.
Tom, I just want to let you know, if you go into your email, Jennifer sent a copy of a PowerPoint presentation just later this afternoon, and we're going through that slide by slide.
Okay. I'll. Okay.
Because we're going to move into the budget review part.
Okay. Okay. I'm just working off the agenda here, sort of thing. So I'll go back and find that. Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay. Go ahead. Carry on.
All right. Thank you.
Sorry, it wasn't in email. It was actually in the file share under budget.
Okay. I'm heading there. Carry on.
Okay, so we're going to just review some of the financial information within the sewer fund, starting with the surplus that's left. So there's, at the end of 2018, there was $239,000 of prior year surplus in account there. Capital reserve, $58,305. There's a reserve that's attached to the sewer fund, and it's called Public Works Yard Reserve, and there's $866,000 there. And I don't know, just a question would be, why is the sewer fund paying for Public Works Yard? And the reason is that the sewer facility where it is took over the Public Works Yard, so it's a contribution back to the Public Works Yard. It's almost like it's kind of like one fund is buying the land from the general operating fund type of thing. But it's not. There's no transaction. It's just, this is a contribution that was planned because the sewer plant took over the Public Works Yard.
Mayor Seegers?
So when we're looking at sewer surplus 2018, sewer future maintenance, capital reserve, those are sewer, not septage.
Yeah, that includes both septage and sewer.
And do we have them separated out internally?
I'll say, well, last year I think it was the first year septage contributed, so it's an easy one to track back at this point.
Okay. And will we be setting up separate accounts?
We can, if that's preferred. That's not a problem.
Well, if we're going to ensure that septage
customers
pay for the capital required for septage, then we need to be able to account for it in a way that it's transparent.
Absolutely. And then we have sewer DCCs sitting just over $2.2 million. And then we have community works funds that can be used for sewer. However, there's a lot of competing projects for this money. So, you'll be seeing a couple of reports coming forward that, whether it be the airport or the water or whatever, roads or, other projects want to try and utilize the community works funds as well.
Is it also called the gas tax funds?
It's
this
it's
is
a
the real
community
name for
works.
it, but we call it, yeah. Right, okay.
Yeah, the federal calls it community works funds and we call it gas tax. Yeah. The debt that's associated with the sewer is all for the Water Resource Center. It currently, or at the end of the year, was $4.8 million left, and expires 2025. And so just below that is how much we're paying in debt, principal, and interest payments. So $740,000 goes to principal and $87,000 to interest, for a total payment of just over $800,000. So I just listed here some of the bylaws that are associated with the sewer system. We have a merged sewer specific area bylaw. It combined several old sewer bylaws, and this is where that specified area is included, the map that I showed you earlier. We have a sewer parcel tax bylaw, 559, sewer user fee bylaw, and public sewer bylaw number 112, and that's also a consolidated bylaw. The 112 is the one that basically says that if there's a sewer line running across the front of your property, you have 2 years to connect to it. And then otherwise we will charge you all the charges, whether you're attached to it or not. So overall we have 6,100 folios within the District of Sechelt. We have 2,900 users tied into our system. And in the specified specific sewer area, we have 3,482 properties. So,
Question?
sorry,
Councilor
go ahead.
McLean?
Just quick math. The sewer specified minus the users is the number of people that aren't connected within the sewer specified area, correct? There's nothing I'm missing here.
Sorry, say that again.
The 3,482 minus 2,923 equals the number of people who aren't connected but in the sewer service area.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, some of those people still can't connect because of those pocketed areas. Okay. So anyway, so we charge $371 for our sewer users, and the specified sewer parcel tax is $274. The Dusty Road user fee is 23 cents a gallon at this point. So this is this would be the budget laid out in its most simplistic format. Okay, we're going to look at it we're going to expand this as we go from here. And so our revenues, if we were to leave the fees the same as last year, this is what we're estimating that the fees would bring in this year. Our total revenues would be just over $3 million. Total expenses, and this is with we put into the expenses some asks for this year, and we'll go through those. And so we're looking at $4.6 million in costs. Now included in here is $1.2 million of amortization. So amortization isn't a cash expense. So to really find out our deficit, we have to then back out the non-cash expense of amortization, which I'm doing here. So we're showing right now a shortfall of $373,000. So it's important that you get comfortable with this, because you'll see this again in the 5-year financial plan, that we include amortization within the budget, and then we take it out at the bottom. Okay, and it's only taken out because it's not a cash expense. Okay. So we expand this out a little bit now. So this is really the same information that showed on the previous slide, but we're now expanding it out. I just showed you the revenue before, but now I'm showing you the sources of that revenue. So our user fees bring in $1.567 million. Collection, $4,000. Connections, $3,500. Treatment fees, $1.153 million. And septage receiving at Dusty Road, $320,000. So then we go to costs, and so administration, $352,000, collection, $605. That's where all your pipes and your lift stations are budgeted, is right there. And we have treatment of $2.6 million, And just a reminder, there's amortization in that number and in that number. So that's not all cash expenses. And then Dusty Road septage receiving, total expenses $320,000. So you can see that on this sheet, those two match. Okay, and that's because there's a $140,000 transfer to capital reserve. So, you know, we don't. This is last year, 160,000 went into reserve from Dusty Road, and the budget allows 140 this year at this point. And then at the bottom we have our debt principal payments. So total expenses for 4.6 million. We add back our depreciation, and we get to our deficit amount of 373 again. Any questions on that? Please ask if there is. I want you, this is important that, you know, we can slow down here to make sure we got it. So now again, I'm going to expand further. Okay, so we're just going to look at the revenues now, and this is, you know, what I would say the line by line budgeting that we do. And so I've circled a few numbers here that I want to talk about. So the user fees. Okay, so this is that $372 per house. Okay, that's where that revenue sits at. It's $1.539 million. And it is up from last year. So the 2019 budget is 1.5, just over 1.5, $28,000 increase is what we're estimating. And that's due to new homes, really development, and anybody who applied to come onto the system that could. This $28,000 is the hospital number that we carry forward from levies against for their sewage. And that gives us that 1.567 number. And then we have the 4,000 from collections and 3,500 from connections. So now on the next slide again, this is just revenues. And a few numbers here highlighted. This is your parcel tax. So this is the $200 number, 274 number. And this is your sales from the septage receiving, the $320,000. And then sales of services from SIGD to $159,000. So this area shows revenues of $1.47 million. And total is at 3.04 million in revenue. So as you can see, we only have really 3 or 4 main areas of revenue for this fund. Most of them are either parcel tax or user fee.
I'm surprised we haven't had more of an increase with SIGD. How do we do those calculations?
Yeah, I haven't looked at it at this point.
Because there was an agreement when we did the Water Resource Center.
Yeah, I know it increased in the last couple of years. There was an increase to the amount that they pay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We may want to revisit that.
Yep. Any questions on the sources?
Can I just go back to the previous slide there, and that 28,366, that's just user fees? That's just for a house, what each household, so the new households that come online, that's what you believe our increase will be?
Yes, that's the the change.
And is that the actual increase we've had for 2019, or is that what you're projecting for 2020?
That's what we're projecting.
Okay. And so that's about 90 households, is that correct? Something like that?
I'd have to do the calculation, but it sounds
Yeah.
close.
But what you said, $371. So maybe it's even less than that. It might be 80. 370 would be 371 would be about 80 units.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's fine. And then so that's what your expectation is. And then and exactly what Mayor Seeger said is the the SIB contribution. That should be something we take a good look at.
All right.
Any other questions? Councillor McLean?
Just a real quick one. Everything here is done at the same rates as last year, correct?
The estimates so far are based on last year's.
Thank you.
Yep. With new numbers on how many people have connected. Okay. So, so this slide is just showing the debt. And now this is where, I mean, it's probably easier just to follow my presentation. This is when you get to page 8, 9, 10, 11 on your agenda, this is where all this data is identical to what you see here. So this is just showing our debt principal payment here. Debt principal payment isn't really an expense. It's an investment in capital, but it is a cash expense, so it has to be shown as such. And we haven't planned any transfers to capital yet, to surplus or anything like that, for the user fees and the parcel taxes. So now we're going to jump into the detail on expenses. And so this is going to be a little different because wherever there's a major change, I've got my next slide kind of explains what the change is included in the budget. So we'll go look at a detail page, and then the next slide will show some of more of the details of the numbers. So this is the administration area. Some small increases here and there, but nothing that I would say is really significant. The allocation cost of administration from the general operating fund has gone up about 17,000, and that's that's just due to increases in salaries and wages and pens and pencils, and it's a small number. However, when we get to collection, there's a bit of change here because we're trying to count the time a little differently from a wage perspective. And so last year we had no wages in the collection area, but it was being expensed in the treatment area. And so I'm more of a fan of trying to make sure you know your costs in each area. And so you'll see there's an $86,000 lift here in wages, but that's not new wages. Those wages were moved from treatment up to here. Okay. And then, of course, benefits follow wages, of course. So we've moved some benefits from the treatment up to here. And so now these other big items, the 55 and the 60 and the 16, we're just going to go to the next slide, and we explain what they are here. So as I explained there, the wages of 86, that's just splitting 20% of the time from the treatment plant out to collection. And then the benefits, now 55,000 here. So it's, so last year's budget had nothing in it. So last year we did some allocations, and we moved, the Dusty Road used to be in collection last year. Not last year, year before last. And so last year we split it out. And so we moved some of the funds from collection into a new accounting area called Dusty Road. And so what it left is just, in moving the money, we reallocated. And so this year, it stays the same, they're separate, but this is some of the asks now that are starting to show up here. So we had contracted services, it had moved down to Dusty Road and some of it should have stayed here. And so we're okay with that because for now, but we need to include 55 grand here. And that is for the Norris Bay Road lift station upgrade. And so what that is really electronics, right? Tell me if I'm wrong. Yeah, electronics for the Norris Bay lift station to keep it going for the time period before we can rebuild it. And so we have a standard $40,000 we spend in this area for contracted services. And so it's just basically the 40,000 plus the 15 makes this budget 55,000.
Sorry, contracted services?
Yes.
So we actually contract with somebody to go out there and do something, and we're going to spend another 15,000 for that.
Yeah. So this is for electrical upgrade. This 15 is for electrical upgrade. The 40 is. You want to talk about the 40?
And use your microphone so Tom can hear too, please.
I believe that 40 is just where the actual charges to the lift stations have been allocated to this cost center.
But contracted services, I don't understand why it would be contracted services.
Well, there's a lot of things. If we if we have an incident or we're trying to perform service, we'll need to have vac trucks come out and remove the contents of the lift station. We spent a lot of time with the electrical contractors out there. The whole lift station runs with electrical components, and they need to be replaced. We had several incidents in the past year that we had to replace expensive equipment in all the lift stations.
Okay, so back up to the top of the page. Request new FTE operator at 20% of 65,170. So 13,034 is part of a new staff member that would be attributed to collections.
Correct.
On top of a current employee?
On top of all of us.
On top of 20% of the current
20% of
employees.
all the operators.
Yeah. So Christine is estimating that 20% of the time that her and her workers are working is with collection.
Okay, so it's not just the new FTE, it's all the operators.
Plus.
Including the new FTE and
Yes.
putting 20% in. Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense then. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, so just digging into that first column a little bit more, I recognize that budget changed a little bit last year. So these numbers, the 40,000, for example, represents our best estimate of what this would be in our new accounting system.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, so then on to the bottom item. So just a lift here of about 20 grand. So we have a pump that we need for $8,500, and then $12,000 worth of spare parts. So that's the lift from last year. What is intended to be here from last year to this year.
McLean?
So very similar question to before. It's about 20 grand in costs, but it's only going up by 5 grand. So that number over to the left.
Right. But these are, okay, I'll give you that one, but these are two definites that we need to include into this budget. There's the 8,500 for pump and 12 grand for spare parts. Okay. And once again, we just moved supplies down to Dusty Road, and we should have left some up here. So this is what we paid to date is $54,000 for supplies for 2019. There was nothing budgeted here, so You're saying it's a 20 under, it's only $8,000 lift, but we don't know because we'd moved that all down to Dusty Road.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like a lot of these projects listed in the 2020 budget are essentially one-time projects.
A lot of them are, there's 2 or 3
Yeah.
that are not, and we'll go through those.
So am I understanding right that potentially there's some other one-time projects that were taken off from that 54 to bring it down to 40 and then add up 20? Is that kind of what's happening, or
Well,
do we need to dig
so
into
we
that?
we do
maybe
have a
later?
history. There's a column that you don't see, which I didn't intend to bring, but it shows a 3-year average. So we kind of start with that as our base budget, is a 3-year average. And because it's shown that that's what we spend every year on little maintenance items as we go. And then now we're detailing some of the other things we need to do within the budget, which we're listing over here on the right, which are also included in the case studies there, business cases.
Mayor Seegers?
So I'm wondering if that number's high enough. I think that's where Councillor McLean's going too. I mean, if the 54,934, is that the average of the 3 years, or just,
So that one's not, that's what we actually spent so far year to date
okay,
for this year. So there were things that we spent that probably were unknowns to us. There's things we budgeted for, and we had things go on top of that,
right.
right? So the original budget may have only been 20 here, or 40. I don't have that number in front of me.
Okay,
But
so I guess we're questioning the 60,500.
yeah,
Is that sufficient, given the history and you know, what we have coming up?
yeah,
We already know we need to spend 20,500
yeah,
on top of what?
we normally would.
Yes,
Yes, we're saying from what we know and the detail that we've got through the business cases, that's what we think is going to be adequate.
but the other thing you've also said is that we know that we're at the 5-year mark and there's some maintenance that needs to happen.
Yeah, and this is only collections
Is
so
the
far.
collections, yes. Okay,
Okay, so treatment will come up in a sec. That's where the majority of them are. Okay, so connection is, there's no budget for connection. We don't spend much in connection. Years ago, I guess we did, but we haven't, I think we budgeted, nothing last year and nothing's planned for this year. So now we jump into treatment. And you'll see quite a bit of differences here, and we'll go through the differences. So wages and salaries, although we split them out, they're up $78,000, and we'll go through that. And the other big one here will be contracted services and consulting, and we'll go through those in detail. So in here is the added person of the majority of the person of 52,000, and budgeting for standby pay because we have somebody on standby 24/7 from the plant now. So that's, I don't know how long that's been going on, but we are budgeting for it at its full amount. Once again, benefits, they're down a little bit, but that's because we pushed them up, some up to the other area. And professional services. So last year we planned an operational audit. We didn't get to it. That holds 50 grand. And we were going to hire consultants for our computer systems over there. And once again, that didn't happen. So we're just budgeting the same 65 for those two projects there. Professional services, contracted services. Last year we budgeted 250, and you know, this is this where no, it isn't. So these are some of the lifts or some of the things that are included in this 337 number. So we budget includes 144,000 for soil for disposal of biosolids, 23,000 for trucking, 14 for odor control system, and that's one of the business cases there. 5,000 for gas detection servicing, and that's also a business case. So that one there is an ongoing one, but this is the first year we've actually budgeted for it. So that's why I included it as a business case. So you'll see that there's $5,000 going outward. $6,000 for the greenhouse maintenance. Once again, there's a business case for that. $20,000 for study on the effluent system. And Christine has marked that down as being an urgent item. $23,000 for a headwork service. $9,000 annually for HVAC and boiler service. Once again, this is an ongoing one. Wasn't budgeted in the past, but we need to include this here annually. And $10,000 annually for blower servicing. So these numbers came about because we did this year, and so we have a good handle on what it's going to cost going forward. Down the bottom, we've put aside $40,000 for liquid waste management, the next phase or the next step. We have some carryover funds that are in the general operating fund for what we plan to date, and this takes it to the next level here. This $40,000, this is for committees and committee work and for the liquid waste management plan. So further down the treatment supplies, we're going from 130 to 195, so $65,000 increase. Although it shows here freight is increasing, it came out of one of the other. We moved it from chemicals, I believe, because that's where it was being expensed. So that's not new. That's just a move. And so the lift there for supplies, $33,000 for diffuser replacement. That's one of the business cases that we have. $25,500 for replacement of carbon. It happens every 2 to 3 years. $6,000 for software hardware upgrades. This is a different expense for computers than the other one. $13K for spare valves and actuators for the WRC. And then this is a new transfer to capital reserve or maintenance reserve of $18,000. So we annually an annual $12,000 transfer for replacement of the UV bulbs. So you replace them when this year, and so we use. I believe we used capital reserves for it, but in 5 more years we're going to have to do it again. So we need to put money away each year so that we have the money for the replacement of those bulbs, and then annually put $6,000 away for capital for diffuser replacement. And technically, Christine can answer that, if you wish. Once again, that's an item in the...
Question, Mayor Segers?
Okay, there was something about a filter test bath that didn't happen this year. Is that going to come out of our regular operating then this coming year? Or
That'll be a carryover project.
Didn't have the money for it.
We talked about that yesterday, and we went and looked at it in more depth, and she's going to move ahead on it now. It's coming from sewer reserve.
Okay.
That's the funding source.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have Dusty Road here, and Once again, not a lot of change, a little bit on wages. Last year we budgeted for a 0.8 person, 0.75, and we're budgeting for full-time this year. So that's the only increase there. A little bit of benefits to go with it. So we'll just jump down. There's 20 grand for contracted services, a little bit for trades, call-outs, and this transfer to reserve. So we have a bunch of sludge dewatering up there on the site, and it needs to stay there for a little bit. But so we're looking at hiring a contracted services to find out like the level of the sludge and where we can dispose of it down the road. And so that's what that $20,000 is for there. Yeah. And just trades, 14,005. It just reflects some of the increases to the call-outs that we've been having. So this is kind of the summary of it. This is showing your total expenses of 4.642 million. And this is your depreciation coming out and just showing what the deficit is at this point, 373,290. Any questions? Hurry, right? So, okay, go ahead.
So I appreciate for the UV filters and the diffuser replacements were essentially saving up over multiple years for some of this regular maintenance. Are those the only examples of that process?
There'll be more coming.
Okay,
but that's too. As we're learning our new plant and finding out what is going to be common and normal replacement periods and all that kind of stuff, more of those will come forward. I think we have another one that we just started talking about the other day. I just don't remember what it is, but there are more that will come.
Okay, because that's the approach I'd really like to see in that.
Yes.
If we have to regularly replace it every couple of years.
Yeah, filters is the one we talked about.
Yeah.
So that's a big ticket item that we should be putting away every year.
Yeah.
As well.
Because we're essentially at year 5 of the WRC right now, and I guess costs are going to go up, and then they might go back down next year. We'll see. But just to level out that as much as we can, so I like that approach.
Yep, for sure.
Any other questions?
Okay, so just moving on to capital. In your agenda, I've got a five-year capital, and this starts on page 30. Page 30 it starts, and you have the 5-year version in paper format, on your agenda, and I'm just going through really the year 1 of the 5-year. And there's business cases for all the new requests included in your agenda package. And the other items above, so the first few items will be probably carried over from this year to next. They may not be those values when we get to the end of the year because we may or may not have spent some of this money in the last 3 or 4 months. And so the business cases that are included are the go forward ones, so the new requests, so $80,000 for camera inspections of the sanitary mains. We're looking to the sewer capital reserve for that. Chemical storage at the Water Resource Center, estimating that at $350,000. We don't have a reserve that can take care of that, but so we're recommending MFA financing. Repair, replace a fluent outfall. So we have we have an ongoing issue with our outfall, sewage outfall, and we're getting to know more and more about that. And so we're estimating that to be about $500,000 to repair or replace parts of it. And once again, recommending financing for that. And then this is the this lift station telemetry. Sorry. This is basically the communication portion of from the lift stations to SCADA. And this $122,000 project is one of the costs. We know this is radio, basically communication. It's probably one of the more expensive, but it's been around the longest. We've also now started pricing out telephone or cellular devices, and the prices are coming in a little bit less than this. And the other one that we're going to look at is like a TELUS drop or a drop of some sort, internet drop, and see how that figures out. So we're just carrying one price for now, but we know that number is going to change a little bit. And it's recommended to come from the sewer capital reserve. So this is just a summary of the funding sources for 2020, and I know this matches your sheet that you have in your agenda out here. So we're looking at capital reserves 169, grants 90, and financing of 850,000. Now, just to go back here, there's this project here, which is the one that we've applied for the grant on. It's the only one we've really carried out more than 1 year. And so this is West Porpoise Bay, West Sechelt infill area, which includes the two lift stations. And it's a multi-year project, and it's quite a large grant that we're applying for. We're hoping to hear by now what was going to happen, but we have not heard. So it's just going to stay in there as a multi-year project at this point, and hopefully we'll hear in the next couple of months whether we're successful or not. So I just put a little additional information at the bottom that if we go ahead with the borrowing, I'm looking at recommending a 5-year borrowing, which would be about $75,000 a year for the chemical storage area, which would be a 5% increase on fees, $500,000 for the outfall. If we borrowed that, it would be $108,000 a year, which would be a further 7%. So now we're back to...
Question, Mayor
Yeah.
Seegers.
Go ahead.
The repair or replace the effluent outfall. If I recall back, we were talking about the outfall, and replacing an outfall is way more than $500,000. We're looking at probably a few million for an outfall.
We have preliminary estimates that give us that amount. Again, we'd look at repair and maybe even twin, so depending on the size. But right now we have some difficulties and issues with our outfall. We are looking at reviewing the status of it, and we have a $20,000 request to do that.
Okay, and we also have to have some conversation with the regional district, which could take us in a different direction.
McLean?
Yeah, just looking for a little update on the chemical storage facility. I'm just trying to find my notes here, but if I recall, there it is, Class C budget estimate right now. Are we looking to bring that up a little bit through the budget process, or will that come after or later in the year?
Yes, it is a Class C, but looking at their costs, I was quite impressed in what they did. Once we go for tender, I'm sure we're going to see it within that $350,000 range.
Mayor Seegers?
Thank you. Reclaimed water treatment and distribution. I see it's pushed out now to 2023. the federal government is starting to put grants forward for reclaimed water. And one of the things that we talked about last year was that we would do the prep work that's required in order to be ready for when those grants are available. So I keep seeing this pushed out year after year after year. When are we actually going to do this and get this ready?
We have a water resource center committee working on that shortly. Their first grant to do investigations was denied. They're looking to rewrite and try and get more information. So I would say, sometime mid-go next year, that committee might have an answer on all of this. And we're just starting discussions with the regional district on the same subject.
Right, so we've got this out at 2023. That's a ways out.
It's a 5-year plan. It can be brought back if things change.
Okay, I'll watch for that. Thank you.
When you're applying for grants, it's more important that it's in a 5-year financial plan than not. So we don't have the money right now, and we probably won't have it next year, but as long as it's in the 5-year financial plan and you're applying for grants, it's key, really.
But we need to do some prep work ahead of time for implementation so that we actually have something ready to be able to apply for grants. If we don't have a plan, we can't apply for the grants.
Right.
Councillor McLean?
Yeah, I'd just like to hear a little more about the issues with the effluent outfall. So in the report, it says the outfall is bridging. I'm not familiar with that term.
Yes, we've had a diver go down and we inspect it periodically. What we're finding that the anchors are deteriorating and there are sections of the pipe that there is no material under the pipe. So the pipe is bridging over the bottom of the ocean.
And what's the risk with that? Pipe floats away?
And what can happen is if your anchors release, you will have a floating pipe. So it's imperative that we definitely review what we have to do and get a good understanding of what type of mechanism we will utilize to replace or repair that pipe.
Tom, do you have a question?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Okay, so we'll start with Dusty Road, just kind of a little summary and some of the things we need to talk about. So currently we're estimating $320,000 worth of revenue with expenses and transfer to capital. We're estimating cost to be $320,000. However, the discussion really is about, is that enough to transfer to reserve? We have several things that are coming up. We have disposal of the sludge that's sitting there dewatering right now. We're estimating that to get rid of it or to dispose of it to be $300,000 to $500,000. We don't really know, but we know that it's not going to be a small dollar value, and we're not putting anything away for that at this point. Dredging the ponds in the future. Yes, we're putting a bit of money away, but only a portion of that is for dredging. Site closure. Preparing a new site. Or are we going to extend our lease? So, the amount that we want to put into reserve, those three things play a key part in that and what we should be charging for fees right now. Because if we can maintain where we are, then the other two can be pushed out later to a later date. But then we did last year, we did a spreadsheet on how much we should be minimally pushing into reserve for the Dusty Road, and it was estimated at $164,000. Just because of cost increases and things, we're only able to put 144 in without an increase to those fees. So, we should be minimally making, 164, but we also should be trying to have a discussion on this to see, should we be putting more than the 164 away and charging appropriately?
Question, Mayor Seegers?
So the conversation that you're talking here about site closure, new receiving site, et cetera, is that something that's gonna be dealt with through the liquid waste management plan? Or is it something that we need to take on as council and move something forward, given the time frame? Because a liquid waste management plan could be 2-3 years out.
The liquid waste management plan will be addressing that to some extent, yes.
Okay, so, but it's something that we need to keep our eye on for sure, you know, and start putting money aside really. And because, you know, 2 of these are, I mean, just to put a new receiving station in, you know, I couldn't even tell you how much that might cost, but that'll be a fairly large number. And then I just put in here like 5% increase to fees is approximately $10,000. So now just looking at the sewer area specifically, I believe I've taken out Dusty Road in here totally. No, I haven't because it's in here. So anyway, so user fees and parcel taxes, those are our 2 biggest sources of revenue. Long range planning, we need an increased level of maintenance at the WRC. We need to find ways to fund our current capital and not necessarily borrowing, and putting money away for lift stations down the road. It is really important that we do have matching funds for some grants. So we know that we want to apply for grants down the road and for various reasons, but we need to have matching funds. And I would say right now we're lacking in that area. And of course, which leads to, you know, we need to increase our transfer for capital purposes. And when I say that, I'm really saying grants as well, because that's where we would gather the money to put the matching funds together, or pull the matching funds from. So this is a little bit more of a summary here. Increases in maintenance, 1 staff. If we factor in some long-range planning, where do we want to see where can we take the fees to? What do we want to put away? Currently, you know, we would need to see $128 increase to user fees just to cover the $373,000 deficit. 2019, we had a $0 increase. 2018, a $0 increase, and in 17 we increased fees by $140. Just a little history. Questions or discussion?
Any questions, Mayor Seegers?
So user fees, what about parcel taxes?
Sorry?
What about parcel taxes? So you're talking user fees, are you talking user fees and parcel taxes is included in that?
So a number of years ago, I think there was a conscious effort, and then we're talking three years ago, there's a conscious effort to have the parcel taxes pay for the debt on the WRC. Now the bylaw is open, means it's not restrictive in its nature, so it can pay for debt or it can pay for costs of common services within the sewer operating fund. And user fees are user fees, so it goes to everything. But I think in 2000, when the debt came on for the WRC, there was a conscious effort to just have the parcel tax pay for the debt and user fees pay for the service, basically.
So we could revisit that if we wanted to.
Yep, the bylaw is not restrictive.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I think this whole thing's gonna need a lot of work, okay?
I guess there's other options would be to add another form of charge, you know, whether it be a frontage or some form of charge. It was a new bylaw, which would be a third option, really.
Councillor McLean?
Yeah, I just want to have a little comment on the capital plan, in that there is no funding for fixing up our pipes in the ground. If I'm reading it right.
You're right on.
We're focused on the short term here with this plan, and who knows what we need to do there. I understand there's a camera study to get a better picture of that, but that could be a very large cost that we're not taking into account here. So I just want everyone to keep that in the back of their mind, that we can do this work 1 year, 2 years, but in a proper 5-year plan, we should be really looking at how we maintain our pipes in the ground, because we're not right now.
Questions? Councillor Toth?
Yeah, I actually just want to agree with Councillor McLean. Sitting through all the days of budget and everything that's been going on up at the regional district, they're looking at a massive shortfall in their sewer asset management, because they didn't know the scope of some of the problems, and they certainly weren't putting away for it. So I'm glad that we are looking at that, putting something forward, a way going forward. And I just wanted to add that in. Thank you.
Mayor Seegers?
We're also looking at, in our liquid waste management plan, potentially adding other connections on. So, and we're not going to get 100% funding for that. So where's that money coming from? So it's, fixing up what we have, but also adding on. We don't have money for that.
Yep, absolutely. Although we are trying to take care of short term, we really need to watch the long term, because, if we don't have money to match, we can't even apply for a grant. And, some of this we're going to have to fund on our own. We're not going to get a grant for every extension that we want to do or every neighborhood we want to bring on. So, we need to find a way. We need to find a way to charge and move forward with a plan.
Sir McLean?
Yeah, and just to continue down that path of long-term planning, one interesting thing I noticed about the proposed capital plan is that a lot of the 2020 projects that we had last year are now 2021 projects. So if we just keep on pushing this needed maintenance down and down the road, we're going to be in a big hole. So I think this service is generally underfunded. And it has a lot of physical infrastructure and assets that we need to make sure we're maintaining right across the system, from the WRC to the pipes to the lift stations and everything in between.
I mean, you'll see the biggest need we have is for moving parts assets. The pump stations or the lift stations and the WRC, wherever something's moving, we're struggling to keep up there. And then the pipes are on top of that.
Questions?
Just back to the Dusty Road. It doesn't seem like that's really self-sustaining in the funding and the revenue that we get out of that either.
Short term it is, but long term it is not. Right.
So when you're looking at $500,000 to deal with the sludge, I mean, that's not in our reserve.
No, it's not.
So we need to, and it hasn't been collecting in a reserve for all the years that the sludge has been collecting.
Correct.
So when you look at those numbers, what's going to make that self-sustaining? Is it going to be 35 cents a gallon, 40 cents a gallon?
Sorry, that's a calculation we can start working on. But I would say, minimally double. Did Ben go? Oh, what was the rate you saw the other day per gallon from another municipality? There's other municipalities that are charging triple our rate per gallon to take septage.
I just use myself, for example, being on septic and for the every 5, 6, 7 years that I've got to pump out, and it's $500 or $600. I'm definitely money better in my pocket at the rate we're going. So obviously, we need to make sure that guys like me are paying an equivalent anyway.
Yeah, we agree.
Any other questions? Mayor Seegers?
So what's the next step?
So today was really to deliver a message, and I think everybody's got the message. We're struggling here, and with regards to the sewer operating fund, so this will come back again. It's introduction to the sewer operating budget, a little bit differently than what you've had in the past. Was intent to educate you on our assets, the ages, the problems that we're starting to face. And so the discussion should be now a little bit bigger picture. We won't probably visit too much of the details again in the sewer, but we need to start talking about long range and where we want to see our rates, where we need to see our rates. And so in one of the budget meetings coming up, we'll revisit this from a higher level discussion.
Tom, do you have any questions?
No, I'm pretty good. This is it's preliminary, so good to understand where we're at.
Perfect. Councillor McLean.
Yeah, and just to understand this new process that we're going through, this should be pretty typical for how we move forward. We get this kind of level introduction and then discuss it again at a following meeting, another committee of the whole.
If you're liking the discussion level, then yes. If we want to change it at any point, I'm more than happy to. But,
I think it's pretty good so far.
Okay.
We'll get you a little bit of feedback in an email later, but we're pretty close.
Okay.
I just want to say I appreciated the feedback, made things a lot clearer, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Toth?
Yeah, I just want to add, don't be afraid to propose jacking up those septic rates. I'm on septic too, and looking at those rates, and it's like most of my fee is actually paid in terms of the hauler, not the septage disposal cost. And yeah, those rates could be way higher and not have a huge impact on my bill.
I'm on septic too, so I agree with him.
Okay, that's good to know. So what we'll do is next time we talk sewer, we'll bring some additional information to talk about maybe how much we need to transfer to reserves and for what reasons, and have some preliminary numbers and kind of a targeted rate for that.
Okay, any more questions?
We still need a resolution to adopt the second report.
All in favor?
Aye.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.